What's up, you beautiful collectors and Star Trek fans? Once again, it's the one and only Optibotimus coming at you with another video review. And on today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the new EXO-6 1/6 scale museum grade KOLINAHR SPOCK as he appeared in Star Trek The Motion Picture. Now, this is actually the second figure from Star Trek The Motion Picture that has been released by EXO-6. The first one being Admiral James T. Kirk. And while I'm still waiting for the folks at Big Bad Toy Store to get their shipment in to send me mine, I got Spock here directly from EXO-6. As recently they've been having immediate sales of some of their figures. And ordering directly through them essentially cuts out the middleman, quite literally. Because this figure came all the way from China, right out of the factory to my house. In an incredible time. Roughly less than a week it took to get from China to me here in Southern California. Which is outstanding in my opinion. And that leads me to something that I've noted. And because of that, at first I was concerned about the packaging. Mostly because coming from that far, a lot of times things get dinged up and damaged. But EXO-6 has really upped their game in terms of packaging, both in terms of the actual figure packaging and the shipping box. That thing was essentially bulletproof, thereby actually fully protecting the package on the inside, which I can say is absolutely perfect. There are no dings, dents, nothing in this. And this is an absolutely gorgeous box that I could almost see myself displaying in front of the Spock figure. It's that darn good. You can see right down here in the bottom section here, you got this gorgeous gold foil that says 1/6 scale museum grade. And then here at the top, it says KOLINAHR SPOCK, which I'll be totally honest, I do not like the fact that they call him the KOLINAHR Spock. This is not the costume or outfit that Spock wore when he was going through the KOLINAHR ritual. And I'll get into that more in a little bit, but that's just one of those little minor nitpicks that I have. But you can see you have a gorgeous image in the front. We got the Enterprise right there. You got Spock. You got that gorgeous rainbow effect. Very, very reminiscent of the original kind of movie poster for Star Trek The Motion Picture. I absolutely love it. The side over here, you can see that it continues on. You got the EXO-6 logo right there. Other side here has a gorgeous Starfleet logo, but it's done up where it's Starfleet Museum. Think that's cool. I like that a lot. Come around to the back of the package. You see contact information, warnings, things of that nature. And then you can actually, it's again, really very high quality. You open this up. On the inside here, you have the cast and crew responsible for making them. You have a little QR code which will take you to the EXO-6 YouTube page, which kind of gives you an instructional video on a lot of their releases. At the recording of this, I don't believe that they've actually filmed that yet, so this might be your first look at the figure, so hopefully I'll do a good job. You have this little insert right here, which is really cool. I like it. When we first see Spock coming to us in Star Trek The Motion Picture, he has to catch up with the Enterprise. So he's using this little shuttle that comes over and ends up docking, and you can see that it's kind of turning around and it's about to dock with the Enterprise. I love that. That's really very cool. And then, again, something that they're doing differently with the packaging is instead of using the plastic clamshells, they chose to go with foam as the protective insert, which that's kind of cool. I like that. But you have the little wrapping papers. You have the figure that was here and all of his other accessories. He doesn't come with a ton of stuff. He is a very bare bones release. However, it is still a very good one nonetheless. And then you can see you got that magnetic clasp right here. Seriously, I'm probably going to display this behind Spock. It looks really darn good. But for the packaging, that's about it. So without further ado, let's get him out here and see how cool he actually is. And here we have the new EXO-6 KOLINAHR SPOCK opened up and out of its packaging. Starting off first with his accessories, coming down to take a closer look at those. As I mentioned previously, this is a very bare bones release. There are not a lot of accessories that you get with this. However, the price of them actually very nicely reflects that. At $175, this is definitely one of the most budget-friendly figures that you can get in terms of 6 scale. But that's not new to EXO-6. A lot of their figures are very budget-friendly. It certainly makes collecting 6 scale Star Trek figures much easier. But for his accessories, in addition to the 2 fairly relaxed hands that you see on him, he also does come with 2 more specific ones. Or maybe you could say 3, I don't know. Number 1, you get a right hand that is done up in the live long and prosper symbol. which absolutely looks fantastic. And then you get another one that is actually 2 hands together. So I don't know if you would count this as 1 or 2, but you can see that it's sculpted in a way where it's 2 hands come together. You got the 2 different peg holes, but they are not separated. And you can see it is done up in his very meditation style kind of positioning for his hands, which is fantastic. I love that. But this one kind of goes along with what I was basically saying previously, that I don't necessarily like the fact that they call this the KOLINAHR Spock. Because in Star Trek the Motion Picture, when he was going through the KOLINAHR process, he was on Vulcan and he was wearing completely different robes. When he met up with the Enterprise, this is the outfit that he wore, which is more typically referred to as meditation robes. We have seen other Vulcans throughout all of Star Trek wearing robes that are like this, and that's what we see him wearing when we first see him on the bridge of the Enterprise after leaving the KOLINAHR. We also saw him wearing this in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. He was in his actual quarters, and he was wearing this to meditate. And in that scene, that's where you could see him using this hand positioning. So, like I said, I feel like this should more be called his meditation robes, or even when we saw the open photon torpedo in Star Trek 3, it was described as his burial robes. So, I don't know, definitely, I'm not a big fan of calling it the KOLINAHR Spock. I mean, I get it, because he left the KOLINAHR and that's what he was wearing, but again, I would have been happier just calling it the meditation robes, or maybe even the burial robes. I don't know if that was something that maybe CBS kind of dictated that they call him. I don't know. Either way, I don't care what he's called, which is ultimately the moral of the story, because he's still a great figure. I could call him Susie for whatever reason. We know what it is. And like I said, this hand positioning is something that he used in Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, so you can kind of recreate that scene to a degree of him meditating from that film. So I love that. You also do get this really nice kind of pin, I guess you could say. It is done up in the very Vulcan, infinite diversity and infinite combinations kind of look. And you got a little bit of a gold bit right here with silver, kind of a little gem right there as well. But this is a nice metal piece, but it is meant to be a pin. But what you can also do is they include this little felt section here where you can take these off if you wanted to. And you can, I love how it's actually kind of cut in that shape as well. So you can put that on. I'm going to try to do that as best as I can, because I will be very kind of OCD about it. So maybe, no, that's kind of straight. Now, I have seen their instructional video for Kirk, and in that one, this was kind of straight, and then they do recommend bending it. But what you now have is a display piece. Yeah, that's going to bother me, so I need to fix that. Just, I get very OCD with things lining up. That's why stickers kind of annoy me to a degree. Oh, see, I'm going to have to fight with that. But it's a little felt piece that, you know, you can take off and put back on and over again if you really want to. And again, let's try. No, that's a little crooked. The rest of this video is just going to be me trying to get this to line up. So that's pretty good. There we go. Is that about right? Yeah. We'll see how that goes. But you get these other little pieces. Now, we've gotten these before. Originally, with some of the other Star Trek figures, there was an autograph card. These original series characters do not come with that, because a lot of them are not alive anymore, so you can't really get them autographed or anything. But this was what that was, and you can see that you got the little clear section here with the little clip that would go on there. You also have this little connecting piece so that you can take the rest of the display base. You can put this here, and you can connect other pieces so that you actually can create the full transporter pad, which is what this is meant to replicate. This is like the center of the transporter pad. This clear section can remove. Then you can put this on if you wanted to create a side of it. So this would be the center, and then this would connect over here to kind of create the appearance of extra transporter pads, which is cool. I absolutely love that, and they do that with this as well. A little bit different because, again, this is from the original series, specifically the motion picture, so the transporter pad did not exactly look like this, but I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm fine. Again, this is just me being nitpicky. But you also get these pieces, which is the first time that we've gotten to really use these. Now, originally, my understanding was that they were going to create a backdrop for the transporter pad, and these were going to be used throughout it, and you can kind of see how this section here would hook onto the edge, and then that cardboard piece that would create the background for the transporter would slide down here and hold it into place. Now, this is designed to hold this little bit. So you can take this, you can put that there. I guess you could kind of use both of these for it. And that will hold that on very nicely. And now you can come over to the base and you can see that there's not a name plaque or anything, but you can take this section here and now you can slide this down so I can get that lined up right. And you can, hold on, we're going to want to squeeze this bit together. Something like that. There we go. So that's nice and brought together. And then you're going to slide this. Oh no, there's going to need to be a little bit of a gap. So you have to play with it a little bit to get it just right. So there's going to be a small gap in between. And you can slot it right in between here. Line that up. Push that down. And now you have that as a display piece, which I think is fantastic. I absolutely love that. I first saw it with their Captain Kirk figure. I'm going to have to fidget with that a little bit. Push that down a little bit better. There we go. Something like that. There we go. And he comes with his Admiral badge, where Spock obviously comes with the kind of Vulcan symbol here, which I think is amazing. I love that. It really gives a different dimension to the display base here, which I really do dig. So even though that the transporter section is still basically based off of the more modern transporter pads, this bit right here really does separate it. I think it looks great. Of course, you got the adjustable cradle here, which is always really nice to see. Now, let me preface by saying that this figure is so damn good, I have to nitpick to find things that I don't like. That being said, this being a very, very gorgeous reflective metal pin, one thing that I think they could do to improve was this was the little baggie that it came in. Now, a lot of times, a lot of the baggies are taped. This had a staple on it, though. So when I took this off, the staple was stuck in the bag. If you don't get that staple completely pulled away from the bag, sliding this out could potentially scrape that, because a metal staple going across the metal on there could easily scrape that. So I would be very careful when you're doing it. So again, just a little bit of a cautionary tale, and then maybe in the future EXO-6 can modify it to just tape this flap down. Again, nitpicking 100%. I know exactly that I'm doing it, and I have to be completely open and honest with my review. And as I said, this figure is just about perfect. So I have to look to those extremes to find something. Now, coming in to take a closer look at the figure, one thing that I will tell you is, first, the sculpt is fantastic. Is it a 10 out of 10? No, it's not. However, I will say that the tailoring and the costume on here is a 10 out of 10. This is absolutely gorgeous. Now, while I was talking about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and how he was wearing this when he was meditating, what I was saying in terms of how it's not entirely going to be accurate is because in that film, he was not wearing this purple undershirt. It was that white undershirt that a lot of the Starfleet officers wore underneath their jacket. So, that being said, you can still recreate that scene, but not 100%. Again, nitpicking. I know, guys. I know. But it is what it is. The costume, though, on here is amazing. Layers upon layers and very soft. This is a very light material. It is truly spectacular. It has a very silky feel to it, so you're definitely going to want to be careful, and you don't want to get any snags on that, because I feel like it could kind of snag it and make some like threads kind of come out. The sleeves are also gorgeous. There is a bit of a stretchy material to it. You have wires around the actual cuff. Now, again, when you get this, you're going to want to play with this for a while to get the wires looking properly. I obviously did not do that, but it doesn't really require that much of an effort. You can do it fairly easily, but it looks so good. But you do want to have the wires kind of in a more natural sort of draping, and it kind of helps just to kind of just go like that and just kind of pull down. And when you do it, it kind of helps straighten things out in a little bit more natural of a roll. Again, you're going to want to futz with it considerably, but just doing that little bit really does look amazing. You can see that he has that front section with the little layered bits right here. I also love this, but this was what I was talking about in terms of how a lot of other Vulcans have worn robes that do have these symbols, and these are Vulcan symbols that apparently translate to, and I don't know if I'm going to be saying this right, but it says Rata, Rafar, and Tapan. There are 3 different symbols. So you got this one right up here, which is the Rata one. The one here in the middle, which is Tafar. And then here at the bottom, that bottom section right there, says Tapan, which basically translates in Vulcan to concept, mental discipline, and cerebral process. So again, it is a very common Vulcan philosophy, and you could see a lot of other Vulcans throughout all of Star Trek wearing robes that had that on there as well. And I love the fact that they recreated it so beautifully. That really does look absolutely spectacular and very accurate. Whenever you take something that's full scale and then you scale it down to 6 scale, there's always going to be a little bit of a change to it. There's not really much with this, but all the way around, like I said, very silky, very fluid and gorgeous. You can also see underneath here is his purplish shirt. Now this is also this is very thin feeling, but also a very soft feel, and you always want to make sure that this gets kind of draped over properly to kind of hide that, because you didn't see that in the film. You just saw the purple here at the top and then the whole black section, which again looks amazing. You come down to the pants, you can see that there are little strings right here, because these would kind of be like sweatpants of sorts. So you have a little drawstring right here that ties them together. Pants, again, very soft, very smooth material, much like the rest of them. And then you come down to the boots, which look absolutely crisp and clean. You got a little bit of a cuff right there, which works wonderfully. But overall, this is a terrifically detailed figure. And coming in to take a closer look at the portrait, again, wonderful likeness. Do I think it's a 10 out of a 10? No, I don't. I would definitely put this at about an 8 out of a 10. I think that it is there. It obviously looks like Spock from the movie, but I feel like maybe the hair it's kind of longer looking. But one thing that I would definitely say is that the paint on here has a very dry look. It almost looks like his skin is very dry. It's not a bad thing or anything of that nature. It's just, it definitely looks painted on, and not necessarily, obviously it was, but when you look at a person, they don't look like their face has been painted on unless they're wearing a lot of makeup. But this, like I said, has a dryish look. I don't know if that's making sense entirely, but I feel like there would be more, like, just in general, when you look at someone's skin, there's a sheen to it. This is a very matte sort of look. I mean, you can definitely see there's some nice reflection, but a normal person has like oils and a moisture to the skin tone. He looks like he's lacking it, and that's the only thing that I would really kind of criticize on him. It still is an amazing likeness, and you can see great detail with the ears. The hair does look good, but it definitely looks like it's a little thicker and a lot to it. I don't know necessarily if that's the right word for it. It really does have a thickness to it that just makes it kind of stand out. The overall detail, though, is amazing. His eyes look great. Even when you look underneath it, you can kind of see the shadow area of where Leonard Nimoy would have had to shave part of the eyebrow so that it doesn't look like it's an eyebrow going this way and up there. So you can really see that as well, which I think is a wonderful attention to detail. But like I said, I definitely feel that the sculpt is there. The likeness is really there, and I do think it is outstanding. Is it a 10 out of 10 though? I don't think that it is, but it is still easily an 8 out of a 10 and still very, very nice. First articulation, the head here is on a ball joint down here at the neck, so you can see it creates a static look for the rest of the head at the neck area, but you can get a great range of motion with it. Left, right, up, down, almost full range of motion there. The shoulders do move in and out. They also have a butterfly joint that you can pivot things. Also, if you want to create a more professional, well, I don't want to say professional, but a stoic look, you can adjust the shoulders up. If you want to have a little bit more of a relaxed look, you can adjust the shoulders down, and it gives a little bit more of a slope to it. But I mean, that Spock is going to have a very stoic nature to him, so we'll go with that. You can get the in and out, the rotation. There's not a lot of restriction. This outfit is very fluid, like I said, so you get a good range of motion with them. You have a bicep rotation. You also have 2 joints here at the elbow, so you can very easily, again, you want to kind of drape this down, kind of pull on it just to kind of keep it looking natural. You can bring the 2 hands together. You can create this, which I think is amazing. So you get a lot of range of motion with that double joint as well. The wrists do move forward and back on a hinge, and then they also do rotate very easily. Come around to the torso area, and you do have a joint here at the diaphragm area. You can kind of rotate that around. You also have, that feels like an ab crunch as well. I mean, you can really get him kind of bending over. Lots of articulation in that. The hips move forward and back, very stiff joints. I really do like that. You do have that forward and back though. You do have the rotation at the upper part of the thigh. Come down to the knee. You can see you got 2 joints for the knee. So again, if you want to create that pose where he's kneeling on the ground, you can easily do that. Come down here to the ankles, and those are on ball joints, so you get a good range of motion with that. You just want to kind of keep that closed down so that you don't see the skin of his his actual foot. But all in all, again, tremendous amount of detail on this guy. Really, really is. And this, despite the fact that I do not look at this as him wearing his Kolinar robes, it is still an amazing recreation of those robes that he had. And I'm just I want to make sure that I'm futzing with it now, and realistically I should do that when I'm not on camera playing with it. But I still think that this is a tremendous release. I think fans of Star Trek, fans of Spock are absolutely gonna love this guy. This is 100% a home run. And here it is, the pose that I'm sure a lot of people that get this figure are going to want to do. Now, actually, in terms of being nitpicky, I did go back and rewatch that scene from the Wrath of Khan. And honestly, he doesn't even make this hand gesture. It's the Live Long and Prosper one put together like that. That's the hand gesture he's actually doing. Where this one comes from, I'm not entirely sure. If you guys know, leave me a comment down in the comment section. I'm curious. I'd like to look that up, but regardless, doesn't matter, because how good this looks. If you listen to this video, you could hear that my only complaints, I should say, are essentially nitpicks. Nitpicking that they call it the KOLINAHR SPOCK. It is what it is. It's kind of a pointless sort of thing, because it doesn't matter what you call them, it still looks amazing. I guess the hand positioning now is kind of a bit of a nitpick. The base, in terms of having a more modern transporter pad, a little bit nitpicky. I mean, like I said, a lot of the stuff that I criticize about the figure, and I want to make sure that I stress this, that using that word criticize is not it's too strong of a word. Nitpick is realistically what I'm doing. This figure is spectacular. The costume is, again, 10 out of 10. Accessories, he's light on them, but I really don't know what else you could have given him. There really isn't much. In terms of the motion picture, he was only wearing this costume for a minute. Truthfully, he used this costume more in Wrath of Khan, as Kirk comes in and has a conversation with him about what's happening at Regula 1. in which he's meditating and he's there, and him and Kirk kind of have a back and forth conversation. And that's where he says, for the first time, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And then Kirk says, or the one. And then Spock gets up, goes over to him, and again, for the first time, says, you have been and always shall be my friend, which is something that's echoed later on. So that scene was very pivotal, and we saw him in it more. And then we saw the robes again in the search for Spock, as they find the burial tube of Spock and realize that the body's no longer in there, but the burial robes, which are these, are. So again, it's a costume that he wore, and there's a lot of kind of connection to it. I would almost say that there's more of a connection to this costume than the motion picture version of James T. Kirk, which I have coming later on, but that I'm also super excited about. So while the costume is a 10 out of a 10, obviously the articulation, spectacular. You can pull off something like this with him kneeling, getting his arms pulled in very tight to do the meditation pose, and utilizing a lot of the joints in the torso. You can kind of round things out to kind of really make him look like he's kneeling and in a meditation style pose. So all the articulation that you could want is definitely here. I would probably say the weakest element about this entire figure is the likeness. But still, in my opinion, that's a solid 8 out of 10. And to me, it is only just coming down to the fact that his hair looks a little bit kind of thicker in terms of like the hair follicles, which again, nitpick. And then the kind of sheen on a normal person's face is not really present there. Again, nitpick. The likeness is absolutely there. It's just in terms of the paint applications. But all the way around, I would easily give this, if I'm going to put numbers on things, if you take the costume, which is a 10, the articulation, which is a 10, and then you take a 8, what does that average out to? Like, that roughly translates to this figure being, on a scale of 1 to 10, a 9.33. So, still stellar. Now, unfortunately, this figure is sold out in a lot of different places. I do think a few are still available right now through Entertainment Earth. I'll go back and I'll check all the different locations that are selling this, and I'll try to put links right down there in the video description. But truthfully, if you're a fan of EXO-6 Star Trek figures, your best bet would be to go to the EXO-6 Facebook page, because there they will post when these figures go for sale, whether it be immediate releases like this one was, or pre-orders, such as a lot of the new ones that they have coming out, like Commander Chakotay, Quark, and some of the ones that they've teased coming up, like B'Elanna Torres, Harry Kim, Jadzia Dax. A lot of them, those will probably be pre-order ones. But the immediate release ones will get posted on there, and you'll be able to go to the EXO-6 website pretty much right away, order them. And like I said, this only took less than a week to get from China to my home. But all that being said, I have been on the EXO-6 bandwagon since the beginning, and they continuously get more and more impressive. And this latest release here is absolutely one of those examples, of where they continue to push themselves to give us the best representation of Star Trek characters in 1/6 scale form that we have ever gotten. And I cannot wait to see what they do in the future. But beyond that, guys, that's about it. Once again, I want to thank you all for tuning in and watching, and please remember that the real trouble with the world is that too many people grow up. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in and watching, and until next time, this has been Optibotimus saying adios, au revoir, and auf Wiedersehen.